Good morning and welcome to this morning's reflection. And we continue to look this week at discerning God's will. We have looked at desolation and consolation in a preparation for discernment. But we also need to do some laying down of a foundation before we can enter into a time of discerning God's will. We need to understand the purpose of the actions that we want to discern. So, if I'm a working woman who is thinking about resigning to stay at home and be with my children, I might ask, what is important to me? What is best for my children? And how do I provide for them? Or, if I am an elderly person in a retirement home, and I'm feeling lost and I'm feeling depressed, I might ask, what has God called me to in the last years of my life? How might I contribute to my small world of family, friends, and community? These are the big questions that set the foundation for what is to come. Keeping before us our life principles or our sense of vocation will help to direct our discernment. So let's look at these big questions. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to have a time of quiet reflection as we spend time in quiet reflecting on some of the questions that I'm going to ask you. And you can stop this recording whenever you like to give yourself more time to reflect. And it's really important to lay these foundations before we go any further. So in the time of quiet, as you open your heart to God, recall the early experiences of Christ calling you and your response to that call. Remember the moment you committed your life to Christ in some concrete way, through moments of conversion, or through a study that you might have been doing. Whatever it was that led you to committing your life to Jesus, remember that moment. Sit quietly and relish these memories. Gratefully praise and reverence God for these life-changing moments. Steeped in gratitude for God's mercy and call, ask yourself the big questions. What is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of my life? What is it that gets me out of bed every morning? And when I am old and near death, what sort of life would I be proud and happy to look back on? Think on those for a moment. Perhaps 2 or 3 words or phrases will arise as you ponder these big questions. Words such as service, love, family, God's glory, sacrifice, affirmation, new beginnings, change for the better, true friend, faithful spouse, and so on and so on. Take these words and phrases and set down your own principle and foundation, in a sense, your own mission statement. With paper and pen, or perhaps with a paintbrush or a guitar, articulate what you believe is your reason for being. Perhaps you can write, God has created me to. What is your reason for being? And you might like to do this at another time or now and stop this recording. Then move from this most basic statement to more particular and concrete vocations or callings. So perhaps someone would begin with the expressions of love and service to God as being their calling, and then move to their particular vocations, perhaps writing or teaching, or social responsibility work, or caring for the elderly. And so your vocation might be that you are there to provide for your family and to be the leader of your family. For each of the vocations you name, recall the moment God called you and the moment you said yes. And then articulate each of these vocations through a God has created me to statement. And so for a moment, think about your particular calling. What is it that God has called you to do? Now keep these statements so that when it comes to discerning the will of God, you have a deep sense of how it all began with God, so that you might honor the beginning as you move forward on your journey. Amen.